be so kind, I want to invite your attention to the Gospel according to Mark, chapter 8. And I really want verses 1 through 9. If you could give me verses 1 through 9. That's perfect because I'm getting ready to encourage myself. Are you ready? In those days, when there was again a great crowd without anything to eat, he called his disciples and said to them, I have compassion for the crowd, because they have been with me now for 3 days and have nothing to eat. If I send them away hungry to their homes, they will faint on the way, and some of them have come from a great distance. His disciples replied, how can one feed these people with bread here in the desert? He asked them, how many loaves do you have? They said, 7. Then he ordered the crowd to sit down on the ground. And he took the 7 loaves, and after giving thanks, he broke them and gave them to his disciples to distribute. And they distributed them to the crowd. They had also a few small fish. And after blessing them, he ordered that these too should be distributed. They ate and were filled. And they took up the broken pieces left over, 7 baskets full. Now there were about 4,000 people, and he sent them away. I'll throw in verse 10 for free. And immediately he got into the boat with his disciples and went to the district of Dalmanutha. Word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. This morning as we pivot, I want to lift as a subject in your hearing, broken bread for a broken world. Broken bread for a broken world. Everybody talking about heaven ain't going. There has been a lot of talk about heaven over these last number of days. But I just want to say emphatically in your hearing that everybody talking about heaven ain't going. In the words of Howard John Wesley, can I push it? Everybody talking about heaven ain't going because everybody who says the name Jesus don't know him. And so I asked permission from the Lord to give me strength to pivot if he would give me insight to share. I promised that today I would be on my best behavior because unfortunately, the last time I stood in this place, it caused our church to go viral. And one of the things that I'm learning not to do is to spend an inordinate amount of time on social media, because as I peruse the pages of comments, I find myself tempted to jump in fights that your pastor should not be in. But as I was wading in the waters of the comment section, I discovered that one of the chief criticisms that we received was that we should just stick to preaching about Jesus. And I found myself confounded and all the way confused because I was preaching about Jesus. And it led me to discover, sisters and brothers, that in this world, and especially in this Western society, we all don't worship, magnify, and lift up the name of the same Jesus. And so since this is a confessional church, a Jesus preaching, Jesus teaching, Jesus believing church, I wanted to take this opportunity today to focus this message and simply talk about Jesus. I want to be clear about who Jesus is and what Jesus came to do. So when the comment section pops off this week, there can be no doubt about the fact that at Fairfield Baptist Church, 6133 Redan Road, Lithonia, Georgia, 30058, in the hamlet of Redan, we preach Jesus Christ and Him crucified. Here's the truth. We live in a broken world. We live in a broken world. We live in a world that says the name Jesus, but does not espouse the values, the ethic, and the way of Jesus Christ. We live in a broken world. We live in a world where we make martyrs out of divisive people. We live in a broken world. We live in a world that in 2025 will still hang a black man in Mississippi some 50 miles from the river where Emmett Till's body was found 70 years ago and try to pass it off as a suicide. That's an old trick. We live in a broken world where nooses are still found hanging. We live in a broken world. We live in a world where churches who profess and preach the name Jesus have to be on guard from protesters. Even as we stand at this moment, we live in a broken world. But I'm so glad that the God I serve, and I'm so glad that the God that you serve has broken bread for a broken world. I'm led this morning to lift up a text that is quite often overlooked, even in the most Bible-believing churches. Today we focus our minds and our hearts upon the Gospel of Mark, chapter 8. It was read in your hearing. It is here that we discover the feeding of the 4,000 men plus women and children. This text is often overlooked because it does not seem to have the same luster. It does not seem to have the same shimmer as the same kind of miracle that occurs 2 chapters earlier. In Mark 6, we were acquainted with the feeding of the 5,000. The feeding of the 5,000 is arguably the most famous of Jesus's miracles. It is so popular that it is recorded in all 4 gospel accounts: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But the feeding of the 4,000 is only recorded in Matthew and Mark. It seems that somewhere along the line in our reading, in our believing, and in our interpretation, that we have allowed the feeding of the 4,000 to be a notch under the 5,000, under the miracle totem pole of our faith. But I will submit to you this day that the feeding of the 4,000 has strong implications for who we are, not only as believers, but as African American believers who are alive and well, living and enduring in these uneven socio-political times. I would submit to you this morning that the feeding of the 4,000 deserves the same kind of emphasis and attention on our minds and in our hearts, because it gives us a full and clear picture of the witness and ministry of Jesus Christ. The feeding of the 5,000 captures our attention because in the northern part of Galilee, some suggest that it was in the springtime that Jesus feeds 5,000 men plus women and children. He feeds them with 2 fish and 5 barley loaves. And everyone eats, and they were satisfied. It's shrouded in mystery. For centuries, we have not yet quite figured out how Jesus multiplied the 2 fish and 5 barley loaves. For centuries, we have yet to figure out, mothers, how Jesus fed the 5,000 with the little boy's lunch. But I would submit to you, even with the feeding of the 5,000, that the fact that Jesus did so with 2 fish and 5 barley loaves is not the weighty part of the miracle. That is not the greatest part of the miracle. While it is amazing and sensational and noteworthy, the fact that Jesus fed 5,000 men plus women and children with 2 fish and 5 barley loaves is not the biggest part of the miracle. The biggest part of the miracle rests in the fact that if you read a pericope earlier, you would discover that King Herod, the tetrarch king, the crazy king who married his brother's wife, who came under scrutiny and condemnation of John the Baptist, threw an exclusive banquet for the creme de la creme of society, where only the top folk in Galilee were invited, and he fed them a banquet. And at this banquet, Herodias' daughter danced so much so that it pleased him, and she went and asked her mother what she should ask for of King Herod, who had already promised, whatever you ask, even up to half of my kingdom, I will give it to you. And she comes back and says, I want John the Baptist's head on a platter. And the Bible tells us that this was conflicting within him, because while he was upset at what John the Baptist had to say, he loved hearing him preach. Isn't that how some folks are? They like our style and they like our swag and they like our culture, but they really don't like us. And so she says, I want John the Baptist's head on a platter. And so John the Baptist was beheaded as a result of Herodias' daughter's request at Herod's exclusive banquet. Here's the great part of Jesus's miracle. One section later, Jesus says, you want to know what a real king is like? Let me show you a real royal banquet. This banquet is not going to be exclusive, but rather it's going to be inclusive. And all you have to do is come. If you're sick, just come. If you're lame, just come. If you're mute, just come. If you're black, just come. If you're white, just come. If you're rich, just come. If you're poor, just come. If you're heterosexual, just come. If you're homosexual, just come. And as many as came to Jesus's banquet, as many were fed and filled and walked away knowing that that is what a real king does. That is what a real leader does. A real leader does not build walls and fences, but a real leader builds bridges and makes room and enlarges the circle. And so that's the feeding of the 5,000. But the feeding of the 4,000 doesn't get as much attention. And I've wondered why that is. Some scholars even suggest, Brother Gay, that the feeding of the 4,000 should actually be considered one of the lost miracles of Jesus. Because folks rarely preach about the feeding of the 4,000. But can I tell you why the feeding of the 4,000 is important for the Fairfield Baptist Church? It is here that Jesus shows us that he is the giver of broken bread for a broken world. When Jesus fed the 5,000, that was a banquet that was open, but it was primarily for the Jews. But the feeding of the 4,000 leads us to a completely different scene and setting. The Bible tells us that Jesus is in the region of the Decapolis, that he has just left the area of Sidon and Tyre. This is a markedly Gentile region. This is a place where men and people like Jesus good Jews would have avoided. In order for Jesus to be among the company of his own, he would have had to take a boat across the sea to go back to the other side where his people were, where his kind were, where the children of Abraham were. But here it is, Jesus, who is the great bread giver, finds himself on a side of the pond where his kind does not belong, in the region of the Decapolis, where he has just left Sidon and Tyre. And this might not be exciting to you because you are having issues with memory recall right now. But if you really understood where Jesus was, you would already be shouting. You would be shouting because Sidon is the same place where that Sidonian princess was from. The Sidonian princess, you remember the Sidonian princess? Her name was Jezebel. Jezebel married King Ahab. Ahab and Jezebel together made it their business to make the prophet Elijah public enemy number one. And they determined that they would not rest until Elijah was dead, only to discover that Ahab would go crazy and lose his mind, and Jezebel's body would be torn apart and eaten by the dogs. This has historical significance. This is where Jesus is. The region of the Decapolis, Sidon and Tyre. Tyre, the king of Tyre during the days of David. In 1 Chronicles 29, when David had made up in his mind that he wanted to build a house for God, decided in his own mind that he had had so many great victories, and the final seal of his monarchical reign would be that he would build a house for God, a place where God would dwell. And then God looked at David and said, David, who told you that I needed a house? And then who told you that you could build something that's big enough to even contain my name? And David, why do you think you're qualified? Because even though you are a man after my own heart, even though you are the apple of my eye, to take on such a task, you are disqualified because there's too much blood on your hands. But since you desire to do a good work, I am going to allow a house to be built in my name, but you aren't going to build it. I'm going to allow your son to build it. And so David says to God, God, that's cool with me. I want to get in wherever I can fit in. And if you won't allow me to build it, I'm going to go in my pocket and ensure that your house has all of the resources that it needs to be built. And so David pulls out his Rolodex and he reaches out to the king of Tyre, and the king of Tyre provides the lumber and the gold and the silver. This has historical implications. Jesus is not among his own, but he's among the Gentiles, the Canaanites, the Phoenicians, the people who are known for producing purple dye. He's in this rich area, but he's in an area of people who they believe are outside of covenant relationship with God. Isn't it funny how we have a way of boxing folks in who don't look like us, think like us, dress like us, live like us, vote like us? Isn't it amazing how a segment of people believe that by birth, God is automatically on their side? I know you don't like this kind of preaching, but I'm going to preach it anyhow. And yet Jesus shows up in a place where his own people don't even believe God knows the address. I'm so glad that Jesus has a history of going to the places where people don't want to go. I'm so glad that Jesus has a history of touching the places where other folks don't want to touch. Is there anybody here who can slip a hand in the air and give God thanks and praise that the Lord goes where other folks won't go? Gotta rush on. Jesus is in Canaanite territory, known enemy territory. And yet the Bible tells us that they are drawn to him. Perhaps that's why Jesus said on one occasion, I have sheep that are not of this fold. I got folks you don't even know about that I give care to. He's in Canaanite territory, the Decapolis, the 10-city area. Here's how we know that Jesus gives broken bread for a broken world. Firstly, Jesus has compassion in the crisis. He has compassion in the crisis. Consider where they are. They are in the wilderness, a deserted place, and these people have been with Jesus no less than 3 days. Everything that they have eaten is gone. There's nothing left to eat. Now, good sense would tell people that when the food runs out, that the party is over, that you go home. But there was something so compelling about the ministry of Jesus, something about what he was teaching, and something about the fact that he had been healing people with all manner of diseases, that they stayed where he was even though they had no food. They had been with Jesus now for 3 days, and they run out of food to eat. But Jesus has compassion in the midst of the crisis. The text says that a great crowd without anything to eat had gathered, and his disciples said to them, I have compassion for the crowd because they have been with me now for 3 days with nothing to eat. And if I send them away hungry, if I send them home while their stomachs are still rumbling, they may faint along the way. But Jesus says, I have compassion for them. So much has been said in recent days about empathy and compassion. People who profess to be followers of Jesus Christ, out of the same mouth say they have no empathy for other people, that they lack the capacity to feel the pain of others and to feel and identify with the struggles of others. How can you be a Christ follower and be devoid of empathy? But I like the fact that Jesus does not use the word empathy. I like that he uses the word compassion. Y'all will get it in a minute. Empathy is the capacity to identify and feel the struggle of another. But compassion, biblical compassion, Christ-like compassion, walks a little further than empathy. Empathy stops at what you feel, but compassion holds empathy by the hand and walks it down the street. Because while empathy feels, compassion walks. Compassion works. Compassion is a word that says, I feel what you feel, and because I feel it, I am therefore moved into action on your behalf. Is there anybody here this morning who's grateful to thank God that while we have a God who feels what we feel, we also have a God who is faithful to step in and move and act on our behalf? It's one thing to feel it. It's another thing to do something about it. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you were broken and confused and you needed some help and you called some people that you thought would be able to help you because they had the capacity to do such, and instead of reaching in their pocket or instead of cooking a meal, they said, well, I'll pray for you. And let me say this, while I believe in the full efficacy of prayer, While I believe that prayer changes things, situations, events, and people, I also believe that every now and then the answer to my prayer is found in your pocket. You can pray for me after you pay for me. Jesus was moved into action, and I'm so glad that when Jesus saw the hungry people, he didn't just say, well, I'm going to pray for them. Jesus looks and says, now what can we do about it? And isn't that our problem when we look around at our world? We have people who have been elected into positions to do something about where we are, but they just say, well, I'll pray. Or that's not my struggle. That's not my problem. That's why you ought to be careful how you treat folks. You may not be hungry today, but I assure you that your day, if you keep on living, might be on the calendar. Jesus is bread for a broken world. He has compassion in the crisis. But not only does he have compassion in the crisis, secondly, he has capacity in the shortage. He has capacity in the shortage. His disciples replied, how can one feed these people with bread here in the desert? He asked them, how many loaves do you have? And they said 7. Then he ordered the crowd to sit down on the ground. And he took the 7 loaves, and after giving thanks, he broke them and gave them to his disciples to distribute. And they distributed them to the crowd. It looks as if they have nothing to work with. They are in crisis. They're in the wilderness. They're away from home in an area where they are really somewhat uncomfortable. They have run out of food. The people are hungry. And the compassionate Jesus sees a need that must be met. Here's what Jesus says. He asked his disciples, what do you have? What do you have? Have you ever looked within yourself or around yourself and felt that you did not have enough of what you needed to meet the need? Jesus asks his disciples, what do you have? I would imagine that Moses would have identified with this. God, I'm not equipped to lead and to do what you have called me to do. This task is too big for me. But God says, well, Moses, what's in your hand? What do you have? I would imagine that the widow woman who was getting ready to fix that last morsel of bread for her son before they died could identify with this. Elijah said to her, I don't need a whole lot, just give me what you have. What do you have? She said, all I have is an ounce of Crisco, a handful of cornmeal, and a few small sticks. Just give me what you have. And might I suggest to you that what you have in your hand might seem insufficient to you. Can I press it a little further? What you have in your hand might actually be insufficient. In fact, it will remain insufficient if it stays in your hand. But if you learn how to take inventory of what you have and entrust it into the hand of one who has greater capacity, little becomes much insufficiency flows into sufficiency. And God can take your little bit and stretch it into what needs to be done if you learn how to give God what you have. There's a shortage, but I love the fact that Jesus' capacity is not impacted by the shortage. The shortage is impacted by Jesus' capacity. The mountain is not big to Jesus. Jesus is big to the mountain. Stop allowing what you see and what we are experiencing to make you think that the Lord can't handle the crisis that we're in and the shortages that we experience, because whenever the Lord is on the scene, trouble might exist, but trouble can't last always. Do you know why I'm not losing my mind? It's because I know who has the capacity. You know why I'm not pulling out my hair? It's because I know who's in control. You gotta rush on. Here's what I love. Here's what I love about the text. Some of us lose faith because we think God needs what we need in order to bring the expected end to pass. Let me walk it back a little bit and say it another way. In order for God to work a miracle, God does not need abundance. God needs availability. God does not need your money as much as God needs your willingness to surrender it to him. God doesn't need you to sing like Whitney. God just needs you to be willing to open your mouth. And I wonder, is there anybody in here who can just slip a hand in the air and say, God, I might not have much, but what I have, I give it to you. My storage is empty and I am available to you. God has, he has capacity in the shortage. Here's how they respond. Jesus says, what do you have? The disciples say, we have 7 loaves. We have 7 loaves. Now some scholars and historians suggest that this is a response of faithlessness, because the way that some read the response of disciples, it is almost as if they have forgotten that 2 chapters ago, they only had 5 loaves and fed 5,000 plus women and children, and now they have 7 loaves and 4,000. We would go on to discover that they have a few fish, which is more than 2 fish. But I don't believe that the disciples were speaking from a point of faithlessness. I believe that when the disciples were responding to Jesus, that they had a smirk on their face. Well, we got 7 loaves and we got a few fish. You know, when you have history with God, it doesn't mean that you won't have problems. But what it allows you to do is that in the midst of your crisis, it allows you to hit rewind. And when problems come, you can smirk. When shortage comes, you can smile and you can begin shouting before the story ends, because you remember when God delivered before. You remember when God made a way before. You remember when God opened the door before, and you don't have to see the end because you already know how the story is going to end. In the midst of shortage, the Lord is able. And if he did it before, slap somebody high five and tell your neighbor he can do it again. He can do it again. Stop your crying, stop your weeping, and start shouting where you are. He has capacity in the shortage. They said, I'm trying to turn this loose. They said, we have 7. We have 7 loaves. We have 7 loaves. And I know biblically standing that 7 is a complete number. It is one of the complete numbers. 1 is a complete number. 3 is a complete number. 12 is a complete number. 40 is a complete number. 70 or 72 is a complete number. And so is 7. 7 speaks to completeness or wholeness. But don't stop there. 7 is not just the number of completion, but 7 is the number of global impact. You missed it. Jesus is not in Galilee. He is in the Decapolis. He is in Canaanite territory, Sidon and Tyre. He is where the Phoenicians are. He is in a part of the world where good news is not supposed to go. He is in a part of the world that is not supposed to be invited into relationship with God. But Jesus is such the broken bread giver. He says that the same bread that I broke and offered to the 5,000, I am Lord enough to travel across the sea, to come to a place where people aren't supposed to be healed, aren't supposed to be touched by good news, aren't supposed to be touched by integration, aren't supposed to be treated like humane folks, aren't supposed to experience what it's like to be a first-class citizen. And the same broken bread I gave to the Jews, I can offer to the whole world. And it's a good thing that I got 7, because that's the indication of global impact. Pastor, why do you preach the way you do? Why do you keep standing on social justice? Why do you keep preaching about the liberating Jesus? It's because in my hand, I got 7 loaves, and God has given us a global mandate to take the whole gospel to the whole world so that it reaches folks that otherwise might not hear the good news. Gotta go. Jesus offers broken bread to a broken world. He shows compassion in the crisis, capacity in the shortage, but thirdly and finally, completion in the breaking. It's right there in verses 7 and 8. They had also a few small fish, and after blessing them, he ordered that these 2 should be distributed. They ate and were filled. And they took up the broken pieces left over, 7 baskets full. There was completion in the breaking. This is where we find the same movement. The Last Supper. He took it, he blessed it, he broke it, and he gave it to his disciples. He took it, he blessed it, he broke it, and he gave it to his disciples. He took it, he blessed it, he broke it, And he gave it to his disciples. He took it. He blessed it. He broke it. And he gave it to his disciples. He took it. He blessed it. He broke it. And he gave it to his disciples. Here's why it's significant. Jesus did not need the disciples to give it out. He could have taken it, blessed it, and gave it to the people himself. But because he wants the disciples to understand that they have a responsibility to participate in the bread breaking and bread giving, he invites them to become waiters so that they can see that as long as they keep going to God for bread, the people who are being served will always have what they need. The disciples need to understand that it is not in them passing it out that provides the sufficiency, but it's in them going to the Lord to receive that which has been blessed and broken, which makes all things sufficient for the people that they are called to serve. I'm saying it this way. Here's all I'm trying to say. As long as the disciples kept coming to Jesus, the people kept receiving what they needed from the Lord. Whenever we decide that the broken bread that Jesus gives is no longer sufficient, is the day that the world will begin to starve for what they need most. Maybe that's why the hymn poet said, "Oh, the world is hungry for the living bread. Lift the Savior up for men to see. Then men will gladly follow him who once taught, I'll draw all men unto me." Maybe that's why our foreparents, whose backs ached with bending over from picking cotton, being in the cane fields, would just rear back in their own moan and say, "Bread of heaven, bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more." It was the participation of the disciples that helped them to understand that we are not the source, but it's God who's the source behind every resource. And here's what happened. The more the disciples served, the text tells us, the more the people were fed. And they ate until they were satisfied, until they were filled. But it all began with their willingness to give up the little bit that they had so that the Lord could take it, bless it, break it, and give it back. I wish I had a church this morning. I got to go. I've already held you too long, but I'm so glad that the God we serve has broken bread for a broken world. I'm so glad that when we take our 7 loaves and give it to the Lord, that he takes it, blesses it, breaks it, and gives it back to us. I can testify in my own life. There have been times when I felt like I didn't have all that I needed to make it. But I learned to step out on faith and say, Lord, if I just give you my little bit, I know that you can take my 7 loaves, and that if you take it, that you'll bless it and break it, and you'll give it out, and it'll be sufficient for whatever is needed. And I know I'm not by myself. I know that I've got some folks right here at 6133 who can testify. There have been times in my life where I have experienced some shortage. There have been times in my life where I didn't know how God was going to meet the need. But I've learned how to give God what I have. I've learned how to trust God with what I had. And I've lived long enough to testify that when you give God what you have, God can stretch it into sufficiency. And now I can look back and thank God for where God has brought me from. Is there anybody here not ashamed to be a witness? Anybody here not ashamed to open your mouth and testify? Is there anybody here not scared to rest upon your feet and be a real protester and testify to the way-making power, to the life-giving power, to the head-lifting power, to the bread-multiplying power of our Lord and Savior, Jesus the Christ? Why don't you high-five somebody and tell your neighbor, neighbor, don't worry. God has broken bread for your broken situation. That's the wrong neighbor. High-five somebody else and tell your neighbor, neighbor, God has broken bread for your broken situation. That's still the wrong neighbor. Why don't you grab somebody? Why don't you hug somebody? Why don't you throw your arm around somebody? Shake them and rock them. Rock them and shake them. Y'all ain't doing it. I said shake them and rock them. Rock them and shake them. And tell your neighbor, neighbor, if you trust God with what you have, God is getting ready to show you a miracle that you've never seen before. God is getting ready to open a door that you didn't know existed. Is there anybody here who feels like I do? Anybody here ready to give God some praise? Well, I gotta leave you here, but I can't leave before I give you this testimony. 3.5 years ago, I came to Fairfield Baptist Church wondering how God was going to work a miracle in the life of this church. We were looking at the mountain of $4,350,000, and all we had were 7 loaves. We initiated the 4-3-2-1 mortgage elimination campaign, striving to eliminate $4 million in 3 years to God's glory. As one church didn't know how we were gonna make it. There were folks who said they would never do it. There were folks who said the preacher is too young. All we had were 7 loaves. No millionaires in the church. All we had were 7 loaves. Didn't have a TV broadcast. Didn't have a national platform. All we had were 7 loaves. every now and then I would reach out to some millionaires, some folks that I knew who had the ability to pay off the debt. Nobody wanted to do it. I didn't understand it then, but I understand now. What God wanted me to do was to wait on him to take the loaves, to bless it, to break it, and to give it to me so that I could give it to y'all. But that was 3.5 years ago. I wish I had time to tell you the whole story, but I come to tell somebody we watched the debt go from 4.35 to 3.35 to 2.35 to 1.35 to 0.35, and now I come to tell somebody that if you trust God with what you have, he's able to work a miracle. The mortgage is gone. The debt is gone. The mortgage is done. We're mortgage free. Is there anybody here who got a made up mind to give God what you have? Won't he do it? Won't he make a way? Is he all right? Say yay! 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 And if God will do it for this house, God is getting ready to do it for your house. Yeah! 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 Nobody but the Lord. I said nobody but God. Nobody but God. Nobody but God. Nobody, nobody. Nobody, nobody, nobody. Doors of the church are open. The doors of the church are open.